How's it going, party people? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Shannon and I hope your week has gone well and the transitional season has been kind to you. So a couple weeks ago, I had posted my introduction to Hitman 3 with my first mission. Unfortunately, with our move and everything, I kind of had to put the game on a back burner and as well as its review. But have no fear, I did eventually get back to Hitman 3 and that's what we're gonna talk about today. In a way, I kind of feel like I did the game a little dirty because, let's be honest, Hitman 3 did not deserve to be put on the back burner like that, but I mean, what are you gonna do? But anyway, so that's what we're gonna talk about today. I'm gonna give you my review of Hitman 3. If you like today's video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe so that you can stay up to date on the Sailor Single Player channel. I think that's pretty much it, so let's not give it any more time. Let's get into this review of Hitman 3.
So where do I start with Hitman 3? Well, in typical Shannon fashion, I had no experience with the series before taking a stab at Hitman 3, and thus had little to no investment in the story and no background for how the game itself worked. As I had mentioned in an earlier video, the game was suggested to me and I came across a few videos of some gameplay and I figured I'd give the game a try. From the get-go, I was pretty excited to explore the numerous ridiculous ways Agent 47 could take out his victims, and given it's a stealth game, I would have otherwise given the game a pass. My first few hours or so of the game were quite enjoyable, and I was able to get quite a few laughs out of my less than believable assassinations. However, once I took a little bit of a break from Hitman and recently came back to the game to finish things up, it kind of fell flat. I found myself rushing to get through the game rather than actually taking in the moments to enjoy all the comedy the game had to offer. We'll get into more why this might have happened in a moment, but first let me get into some highlights of the game. First and foremost, the maps are certainly some of the more fulfilling and enjoyable aspects of the game. From the musty and muted landscape of Thornbridge Manor to the hustle and bustle of the rave down in Germany, the few maps and environments of each quest in Hitman 3 was something for the eye to behold, and gave me something to look forward to as I moved throughout the story. Something I do want to mention, however, is that even though there's an incredible amount of detail and uniqueness given to each map, the player's interaction in the space is pretty limited, meaning that while the environment itself is new to the player, you'll find Agent 47 will typically interact and use the same materials when completing his tasks across the board. There are a few instances where the player can use unique objects around them to complete their quest, but they're kind of runoff items sprinkled here and there. Typically, I'd get pretty frustrated by the number of locked doors, vents, and pathways I've come across that it often made me wonder if I was missing important steps in the mission, or should I really be carrying around a limitless supply of screwdrivers and lockpicks to get through these doors. At that point, it seems like the focus of the game was how much stuff can Agent 47 casually carry without flagging suspicion, and not so much take out so-and-so target. This is probably just me venting here because on top of stealth being one of my least favorite gameplay genres, looting comes in at a very close second. Perhaps a minor thing to point out, but just something I noticed. So kind of moving on from maps and onto another pro and kind of con as well was the actual gameplay. Essentially, the game has what felt like limitless possibilities when taking out your assigned target. I really like the idea of giving the player complete control when it comes to completing a mission, and you can tell based on some other folks' gameplay, people really strive and enjoy this freedom. It's one of the things that kind of drew me to the game because some of the comedic moments coming out of the game had tears running down my face from laughter. And trust me when I say there are plenty of those comedic moments to come across. However, on the flip side of this, not everybody, and by everybody, I really mean myself, is not equipped for this kind of creative thinking or imagination when it comes to gameplay. Try as I might, anytime I tried to go rogue and handle a target by myself, oftentimes I'd end up wandering around the map for countless hours. I'd get bored with my lack of progression and revert back to walkthroughs or videos to get back on track for the story mission that would happily guide me back to the plot. Again, this comes from myself really struggling to have the patience in slower paced games to go out and explore the different quest options I have at hand to complete a task. This kind of ties back into the wandering around the map and collecting every possible item you come across because it may or may not be needed to complete the task. Sadly, I'm not here for that, but I see that it could be a necessity in that scenario. Side note, can we talk about how hard it is to find poison in the game? Like, I found rat poison once in a later mission and didn't have the opportunity to actually use it, and that was a little bit of a bummer in my book. Anyway, from there, due to my lack of creativity, the game became a little bit repetitive for me. Typically, with the help of the story mission, I'd dress up as a guard or some type of security personnel, do some tinkering to create a distraction to get my target by themselves, and then take out my target. All fun and dandy the first few times I was successful, but a bit repetitive and boring once you've done it X amount of times. That's probably my biggest issue with the game. And again, depending on how you approach the target, the amount of freedom you have in the quest may or may not work for you. So let's kind of talk briefly about the overarching game in itself and general layout. Prior to a mission starting, you'll have the opportunity to bring in new gadgets and items into your mission that you've carried on from previous missions. You'll select your level, go through your intel, and send Agent 47 off to complete his quest. Here's the catch, however. All this is allowed if you're set up for online gameplay. To me, this was a huge con. Just saying, if you're anything like me, you're not the most prone to latch onto online gameplay and would rather keep your adventure to yourself. I'm still trying to understand the point when you've already invested real-world money into the game and why you wouldn't be allowed to have the full experience of the game offline. To me, having to log on to get the full experience and your score in Hitman 3 felt very unnecessary, which led to my thoughts about the game and its serious play into FOMO, if that's your thing. From my experience, it felt like the game kind of caters to 100% completion rather than investing too much into the story itself. I kind of got the feeling that the game relies heavily on players wanting to go back and replay missions if their score wasn't up to par, or players felt the need to complete the reward grid at the end of a level to get complete fulfillment of the game. If it weren't for my break while playing the game, my playthrough would have probably lasted 10 to 15 hours tops. And that's really just me playing to push the game forward and not really taking the time to fully complete a level. I could see how for some players this might be a motivating or driving factor to go back to a level and push harder for a better score in the next level, rather than seeing what unfolds next for Agent 47 and his goon squad. I think, at least for me, this might have been part of my disconnect from the game. While I do want to get a good score and see how much of a level I can actually complete, that doesn't actually drive me to replay the level, and thus I had a shorter playthrough. I think all in all for me, Hitman 3 kind of felt like a missed opportunity. Or at least it was for my playstyle. Yes, it has beautiful landscapes and maps, and I was able to get some deep belly laughs in the first few hours of my gameplay, but after a bit, it ran a little stale. I'm not the type of player that's motivated by completion points, and I struggle a bit if a game doesn't have too much of a structure of the gameplay. That's probably the biggest missed opportunity for me, because while I know the entertainment is there, and Hitman 3 can absolutely be a grand time if you know what you're doing, I wasn't actually able to experience it through my preferred playstyle. So while I don't want to discourage folks from Hitman 3, I'm hoping folks kind of take it with a grain of salt and kind of think about the type of gameplay that works well for them. I think for the most part, a majority of folks will be able to take something from Hitman 3. If anything, it just may not span over the entire course of the game. If I leave you with anything, the one thing I would suggest is to stay with it until you've managed to KO one NPC with a banana, and after that, you'll be the one to decide. I think for me, I kind of need to let Hitman 3 sit for a little bit and perhaps come back to it with fresh eyes and more complete expectations. I mean, at the end of the day, my Agent 47 is still holding on to some rat poison that I truly just can't let go to waste. Thank you so much for tuning into my video for Hitman 3. What are your thoughts on the game? Be sure to leave those down in the comment box below. If you liked the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Until the next game though, I will see y'all next time. Bye!